right. What's up, everybody? All right. So, as promised, this is my spoiler review of The Batman. Uh, let's see. There we go. Do that. Right. So, there are going to be spoilers in this. You have been duly warned. I wanted to do this with the other boys on the rest of Friday Night Philosophy, but none of them had seen The Batman yet. They didn't want me to spoil it for them. So, all right, fine. So, they're all gone. It's just us. I've got my drinky. Actually, since Lent has started, I don't have drinky, so this is just ginger beer and lime. All right. So about the movie. So if you saw my video, I did a short reaction, just initial take as soon as I left the theater last night. Again, I loved the movie. So I've had about 24 hours now to kind of sit with it, to reflect a little bit on it, and and I've listened to some other people too, and most of the people that I listened to, they seem to have enjoyed this movie. Some of them had a couple of things they really hated about it. I don't think anybody that I've seen or that I watch liked this movie as much as I did. Right. So the first thing that I'll say too, even though, so I said yesterday, right? I grew up with Batman. To this day, I have never read a Marvel comic. Prior to 2008 and the making of Iron Man, like I knew who Spider-Man was. I used to watch the cartoon on Saturday morning, but I didn't know those characters. I've never read a Marvel comic book, even to this day. I was never, even in DC Comics, I was never a Superman fan. I'm not. I barely knew the other, like, I don't think I'd ever heard of Aquaman. I maybe knew about Wonder Woman. I didn't know about any of the other Flash, Cyborg, all, no idea, right? But I was a Batman fan, right? And even as a kid, though, I didn't collect Batman comics, right? And I didn't follow like huge runs or anything like that. I have a few. I have a few of the story arcs that I enjoy, right? So I've got like the Nightfall Saga, Death in the Family, Long Halloween, Year One, and a handful of others, right? Just stories that I kind of like, that I've collected just through the years, right? But I'm not a lore master, right? I mean, like, uh, to be really familiar with the comics, with the so-called source material and all of the different iterations of Batman through the source material. I mean, I know I have enough of the story arcs. I know that he's at sometimes been more serious, sometimes he's been more campy, uh, and so on. And okay, fine. Right. First, though, I think, right. So I was, when I first saw, or when I first got the announcement for the Batman, whenever it was a couple years ago, right, or a year and a half ago, whenever the first announcements came out, right. I was worried about Robert Pattinson being cast as Batman. Uh, I hadn't really seen him in anything else other than like the Harry Potter movie that he was in, and I knew of the Twilight films, so okay. But I hadn't seen any of his other like independent stuff. I still haven't, right? So I was a little concerned about that. But what he brought, uh, as I said yesterday, I think first of all, I think he did an excellent job as Batman, right? Especially a like year two Batman, someone and who's also still very young. The movie talks about how it's been 20 years since his parents were killed, and so depending on how old you put Bruce when his parents are killed, I think he was around 10 or so, right? So this puts him in either like late 20s to very early 30s, right? He actually looks a lot younger than that. In some of the scenes where he's in the mansion and he's just like in a t-shirt and he's got his long hair and like he looks like he could still be a teenager, you know. But I think he captures, though, right? When you think about what would this young man who's 2 years into doing this crime fighting type of thing, uh, like, who's still wrestling with who he is. Is he a symbol of vengeance or is he a symbol of justice? Right? Is he a symbol of fear? Is he a symbol of hope? And this guy's who's very emotionally traumatized, who has to wrestle with that kind of question. And I think he did a great job. He did a great job of showcasing that. So I mean, as Batman, I love the performance. As Bruce Wayne, he's only like Bruce Wayne for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. It's not a long time of screen time. He's mostly Batman through the film. But even when he's Bruce Wayne, he's Batman, right? Even like at the end, even the Riddler makes that kind of remark to him, like he says, he's looking at the Batman. He says, "We both know this is the real you, right? That the Bruce Wayne is the mask." Um, so that that's kind of interesting that they explore that. That's been picked up in some of the other Batman films as well, right? That it's the Batman is who Bruce really is. It's Bruce Wayne that's the fiction. Um, but in general, I was fine with the performance. I thought it was great. I have no qualms really with any of the performances, right? So Colin Farrell's performance as Penguin, I really loved it. I thought it was great. There were a couple of moments in the film. If he's not in it a lot, there were a couple of moments in the film. He almost reminded me of it was something like very De Niro esque, like Robert De Niro kind of from like the Untouchables era, right? That kind of gangster, and you're like, that was pretty good. As Oswald Cobblepot's only in the movie, also for maybe about 25 minutes, something like that of screen time. We don't see him as the mob boss yet. We see him as henchman, and by the end of the film, poised to take over as mob boss. So it's kind of interesting to even see him kind of come into his own. But his performance was stellar. The car chase scene with Penguin and Batman. Oh my goodness, that was phenomenal. That was just freaking phenomenal. I loved the Batmobile. I loved everything they did with the Batmobile. Like the notion that Bruce built this himself. It's this kind of like hybrid, like it's just made together from all these different car parts that he's just put together himself. And like put a jet engine on the back of. Like, I mean, it was incredible. I loved the Batmobile and I loved that car chase sequence. I remember sitting in the theater looking at the car chase sequence, like just holy shit, this is fantastic. I love it. Uh, Arguably one of the best sequences in the film. Just I really did like it. So that was great. Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler was just it was spectacular. Now, I know enough from the comics, right, that this isn't the comic kind of adaptation of the Riddler. They do talk about in some of the interviews that are out online and stuff like that this was more inspired by like the Zodiac serial killer and stuff like that. And yeah, this is more Seven, kind of like that feel than comic book Riddler. But it's an interesting take on the character, right? This is somebody who is clearly had an emotional, mental breakdown somewhere along the way, right? Whatever has happened to him. So it comes out that he was an orphan, much like Bruce, but he he was a regular orphan, right? He didn't have like the billions of dollars and stuff like that to fall back on. He lived in the city orphanage, totally crappy conditions, and all of the like the funding that was supposed to help out the orphanage, that whole the renewal program that's a main plot point in the film, ends up being really like a fraud, right? None of that goes down into the orphanage. None of it ever gets put towards doing good works in the city, which was what the renewal fund was supposed to be for. Um, and it was because of the corruption, the interplay between the mob, the institutions, the police, the district attorneys, so on. Right, that the Riddler's quest is to expose all of that, and that's what the film is about. Right now, in the so Paul Dano's performance and this particular take on the Riddler was it was very interesting. I don't have anything against it. The first thing that that I do have something against, and I said this kind of in my video yesterday. If you're a fan of the Batman, you're going to hate the way they rewrote Thomas and Martha Wayne. Uh, right, so they rewrote Martha is from the Arkham family, who is mentally unstable, who's in and out of Arkham Asylum, and that somebody gets a hold of this, and that Thomas Wayne. So there's this newspaper reporter he's got the dirt on Martha, and so Thomas Wayne, who's running for mayor, goes to Carmine Falcone, right, crime boss Carmine Falcone, and has him intimidate the newspaper reporter, and of course Falcone ends up killing the guy. And so it's played like Thomas Wayne had Falcone kill this guy, right? So it's played off like Thomas Thomas Wayne is um, not the sort of the virtuous man that he's kind of portrayed in, as at least as I'm familiar with in the comic books. Right, but instead that he's almost a part of the corruption. Now, I did say, right, some of those things are massaged away. Right, Alfred does talk about that. What Thomas wanted was just for Falcone to intimidate the guy, but as he said, his Thomas's mistake was that he should have known the kind of man Falcone was, and that was his mistake, was trusting Falcone to just intimidate this guy rather than kill him. Right. And it comes out then that when Thomas Wayne finds out what Falcone had done, he was going to go to the police, confess the whole thing, and so Falcone. The implication is that Falcone has him killed, right? It's that night he and Martha are shot. Right now, they don't show that in the movie, right? The death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. We've seen it enough, so that's not in the movie. But just the rewriting of all those two characters, I think it was unnecessary, and it was unnecessary to the story. But that is how it was played. So the Riddler, we're also kind of given that the Riddler has figured out that Batman is Bruce Wayne, uh, and so but that's part of the whole interplay, the exposing the corruption of the city. That it even includes now dead Thomas Wayne and now of age Bruce, who, as they say in the film, right, he needs to pay for the sins of his father. So I wasn't a fan of that. That was all right. That did not need to happen. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Again, as I said, I have no problems with any of the performances in the movie, and I was kind of wondering what they were going to do with that character. And man, I thought they got it. She is not the. I was kind of worried that they were going to like SJW her character, and she was just going to show up and like kick Batman's ass. And when they meet for the first time, and they kind of spar, but it's like, nope, this Batman, even though he's still kind of figuring himself out, this is not a Batman that needs any more training. And I mean, he takes her, right, and relatively easily, but of course he doesn't hurt her. There's a chemistry between them right from the start, and it's perfect. I really liked that kind of. There's a as they're kind of working professionally, there's something romantic under the surface as well. Like the chemistry between them was very, very good, and I really liked the way they treated that character. I thought that was done spectacularly. She does have Catwoman does have this like throwaway comment about white privilege, and nobody cares about these rich white dudes that are dying. Screw them all, basically. And it was, again, it just kind of it was just so cringe hearing that again. It was like, why? It didn't add anything to the story. It didn't even play into the story so much. It wasn't a point in any other part of the story. It was just some throwaway line that Catwoman has to Batman, who she doesn't know is Bruce Wayne, while she's telling him, screw Bruce Wayne and all those other rich white people. No one cares that they're dying, right? Fine. We do get to see Batman as detective in this film, right? Again, something that we haven't seen before, right? Whether it was Michael Keaton, whether it was Val Kilmer, George Clooney, even Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, we never got to see, even Adam West, we never really got to see the mind of Batman, right? And so I really enjoyed that part. I have seen some other people I've watched who did their reviews on the movie, and they said, that there was, I don't know, that they maybe could have done a little less of that. I don't think so. I really enjoyed that part of this. There are a couple of really good ass kicking scenes, but there's not a lot. This isn't, or at least now in this early stage, um, he probably does a lot of crime fighting. Obviously, he does have this reputation. In the beginning of the movie, we see that the criminals are scared of him. They probably don't get scared of him without him having broken a few arms and whatnot. And that was interesting too. You actually do see the Batman here, like having to restrain himself. Like he beats some of these people senseless. It's like, he's kind of even in himself coming to grips with, just how far am I going to go, and where do I pull back? That was kind of cool too. So we get to see Batman's mind at work, which again I appreciated. I really liked. Um, the rest of the film pieces, the score. Oh my goodness, the score! It was phenomenal. If I could see this movie again in IMAX, I would. Turns out we don't have an IMAX theater here, so sucks. Because if this is a movie to see in IMAX. Let's see. Was there anything else about that? So all right, towards the end, right? Okay, so first of all, I'll say this too. Like, I had no problem with the runtime. It could have gone longer. I was fine. I to me, to me, it didn't even feel like a 3 hour movie. It could have gone on, and I would have been perfectly happy. I was loving it the whole step of the way. That being said, the movie does kind of trip up towards the end. There's a couple of things that just come out of nowhere. That like Gotham is under sea level, for instance, and so when the Riddler blows all of the vans, which we wonder, where did he get the funds to do this? We don't know. And blows the seawall all to hell and puts all of Gotham underwater to set up the final act. Again, you're kind of like, well, that's interesting, and this is the first time we're hearing about this. It also is, as I said last night, that was kind of what I was alluding to, and I said, for the sequel, this is an interesting way to, an interesting place to continue from, if they're going to do a sequel, which I hope they do. I really did like this movie. I liked the portrayal of Batman. Again, like Bruce Wayne is still a young man. It's maybe understandable that he doesn't care about the ins and outs of Wayne Enterprises yet. He doesn't see the necessity of putting on the face of Bruce Wayne for the city yet. This is something he's learning. Um, the kind of so in the end, they do capture the Riddler. Um, they have the Joker cameo at the end, which that was, I was kind of suspecting they were going to do something, right? Especially when you get towards the end of the film, you know that, all right, they're they've got to set something up for the next part, right? And it turns out to be Joker. No idea who the actor is that plays him. Of course, and they're in prison. They're in Arkham Asylum, I think. So all you can kind of see is his eyes. The little thing in the door where they slide and they put your food and stuff or whatever. So that's all you can just kind of see his face, and a little bit of the mouth you can see is very scarred and disfigured. So, and of course, what gives him away is the Joker is the fact when he starts laughing, obviously, right? So, okay, well, interesting. We'll see what maybe they do with that. Um, let's see. Yeah, in general, so all in all, thinking back, on the film again, having had a little bit of time to think about it, definitely, I'm going to stick with my 4 out of 5 stars, 4.5 stars. I think I did 4.5, 5 last night. I'm gonna stick with 4.5. This movie, you could tell, as I said, this is aiming to be the best Batman movie. Didn't make it, but I mean, it's up there. Only one person I saw said it was better than Batman Begins. Nobody else that I watched would think it was better than that. I really don't know. I'm gonna be on like they're different, and this is actually one of the things that I really did enjoy about this is a different take on this character than I think anything that's been done before. Whether it was the dark kind of Tim Burton, whether it was the neon Joel Schumacher, whether it was even the kind of gritty realistic of Christopher Nolan. This is just something different. This really is like a film noir crime detective story with Batman. Uh, I guess I could see maybe why some people are less than thrilled about that. Maybe they wanted more of a Batman movie. But one of the things for me, I'll say this too. One of the reasons that I always, or what I liked about Batman was was the realism. And I mean that at least in this sense. Right? I like that Batman had no superpowers. Right? He's rich and nuts. Right? That's it. He has that sense of justice, of fighting for what's right, and he has the resources that enable him to do this. Okay. The reason I never got into the comics and stuff like that is because once you started getting into certain characters like Clayface, Once you brought in the rest of the Justice League and all these superpowers, these other paranormal, supernormal creatures, it took it out of it for me, and like it took me out of the world. That wasn't what I liked about it, and stuff like the Lazarus Pit and all that. I was like, that isn't what I liked. So okay, fine, right, and that's why I never really got that much into the comics. So to actually see, like, this is a realistic Batman. Even most of the gadgets, like, you could see this working. There's only one element where he's escaping from the police station, and he has a glide suit, right? A body glide suit. Which again, I'm like, you could see that working, especially, rich guy gets his hands on a glide suit, jumps off the top of a building. You're like, I could see that working. Uh, but then there's the very very end, and when he pulls the parachute and it catches the bridge, and what like he hits like the bridge, bounces off the top of a truck, and then like for oh, 75 yards, just like skids along the concrete. And you're like, oh, that took me out of it a little bit, right? I don't know that he should have survived that. But considering all the times this dude gets shot point blank range by, I mean, high velocity military grade rounds, just takes a shot right to the chest repeatedly. Presumably his armor is pretty good. Maybe he could have survived a fall like that. I don't know. That'd be one of the things that maybe that would have been nice, was maybe to explain the bat suit a little bit. Clearly it's armored. He gets shot a lot. He gets shot all of the times in this movie. But yet the way we see him just beat people's ass. So clearly his bat suit is lightweight. Like, he's able to move, he's able to jump and kick and fight and all this other stuff, but it takes high velocity military grade rounds, and is just fine. So man, that would have been interesting to see. So there are those little things throughout the film that was like, oh, okay, you do have a 3-hour movie. You maybe could have explained some of these things a little bit more. You could have wrapped this up maybe a little bit better. Some of the things some of these things could have been laid out and explored a little bit further in the 3-hour runtime. Again, not that I had a problem with that. It could have kept going. I would have been fine. All right. Definitely recommend this movie, as you guys can tell. Even after a day to think about it, even after whatever problems I have with the movie, I thought it was awesome. I definitely want to see it again. I'm definitely going to buy it. I don't know that I'll get back out to the theater to see it again, but I am definitely going to buy it. All right. Thanks for sitting through this with me. I hope you guys go see the movie. I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. And other than that, I will see you guys next time. Take care.